We continue now at the top of Daf Zayin Amud Aleph in Meseches Bava Kamma. This is Bava Kamma Daf 7a. On the previous summer, there was a machlokas Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva when it says that you have to pay from the best of your land if you are a mazik, if you're a damager. So we understand that's the idios, that's the best of the land. But whose land are we talking about? According to Rabbi Yishmael, we're talking about the best of the land of the nizik, the person who was damaged. Meaning to say, if the worst land of the mazik is equal to the best land of the nizik, you only have to pay with the worst property of the mazik, because that's the equivalent of the best property of the nizik. We follow the nizik according to Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Akiva disagrees and says, no, but the mazik shaiminan, in that case, the mazik still has to pay from the best of his land. And then Rabbi Akiva also said, V'kal v'chomer lehektish. This is certainly true when it comes to hektish. And the Gemara's question was, what exactly does it mean that it's certainly true when it comes to hektish? The Gemara initially suggested maybe it's talking about a situation where a regular person's shore gored a shore of hektish, but the problem is we can't be referring to that because the pasuk says shore reyehu. We understand that if you gore a shore of hektish, that's not considered reyehu, that's not the shore of his friend, and therefore you'd actually be completely potter in that situation. And so then the Gemara suggested maybe we're talking about a person who said they were going to donate a certain amount to Bedek Habayis, and so that's where Rabbi Akiva says you have to pay idios. But the Gemara says that's not true because that's like a regular Balchov, that's like a regular debtor, and the halach is Ubalchov bebeinanis. The halach is a Balchov, pays with beinanis, pays with the middle land. Rashi says that's from Meseches Gittin. Now, if you're going to say Savar Rabbi Akiva, that maybe Rabbi Akiva holds Kol Balchov Nami be'idios, that a Balchov actually also pays idios. Maybe that happens to be the shita of Rabbi Akiva, but that still wouldn't work because ikal mifrach, because you can still refute it in terms of hektish. You wouldn't necessarily extend that to hektish because you would say mala balchov shekain yafa kocho benizaken, because when it comes to a balchov in situations of damage, he has this stronger strength, as we said, tomar vehektish. Whereas by hektish, as we said earlier, shahora kocho benizaken, there's not a strong situation in terms of damages, as we said. If a regular person's shore damages a shore of hektish, so the person is going to be completely putter, and so therefore maybe by a balchov also, when it comes to a debt, to a regular person, maybe you pay idios, but that wouldn't necessarily be true when it comes to hektish. Rashi says, V'chitema kasav Rabbi Akiva, if you're going to say again, Rabbi Akiva holds in general a balchov is with idios, afilu hachi lo gamrin in hektish minei. Nevertheless, you're not going to learn out that idea to hektish, the ikal mifrach, because you can ask the following: Mala balchov sheken yofe kocho benizaken. When it comes to a balchov, meaning a regular person, in situations of damages, the person has a strong position. Shahed yorhu notel behezeko min idios, because again, a regular person collects in cases of damages from the best property. Tomer behektish shahora kocho benizaken. When it comes to hektish, on the contrary, hektish has a very weak position when it comes to damage. To lo shakil nezek midi, because as we said again, hektish is not going to collect anything when it comes to situations of damage. And so the Gemara says, Liolam, really what Rabbi Akiva is talking about when he says, Kal v'chomer lehektish, de nagach Torah didon leTorah de hektish, it is talking about what we said before. It's talking about when our ox scores the ox of hektish, udukakash alach, and that which you asked, shor reyehu amar achmana v'lo shor shel hektish, that the pasuk says it has to be the shore of his friend, not the shore of hektish, and therefore you understood that the person is totally potter in that situation, but that's not true according to Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva savar like Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, because Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya. The Tanya, as we learned in a brayso, Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya Omer, Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya says, shor shel hektish, shenagach shor shel hedyot, if a shore of hektish gores a shore of a regular person, so potter in that case, that's the strength. Hektish, on the contrary, has the stronger position, whereas shor shel hedyot, shenagach shor shel hektish, but if a regular person's ox gores an ox of hektish, bein tam, bein muad, it doesn't matter if it's a tam, it doesn't matter if it's a muad, it's actually stricter. In a normal situation, a tam pays chatzi nezek, but over here, mishalim nezek shalim, over here, he's always going to pay nezek shalim. Rashi explains, the Tanya Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, Bereish Pirkin, the Shor Shanagach Arba v'chamisha. This is the beginning of Perek Shor Shanagach Arba v'chamisha. Mishalim nezek shalim, the payment is going to be full always when it comes to goring a shore of hektish. The Kadarish lay, now according to Rabbi Shimon ben Menasya, the way he darshans l'reyehu hachi, he darshans the word reyehu as follows: Shor shel reyehu hu tachi have a mazik tam lo mishalim el chatzi nezek. if it gores the shore of his friend, then by a tam you only pay chatzi nezik. Avali mazik shore shel hektish, but let's say it would damage the shore of hektish. Mishali mazik nezik shalim va'afilu tam. Then the mazik would pay nezik shalim, even if you're talking about a situation of a tam. The Kamar Rabbi Akiva, the shakal hektish shir demei shoro me idius karko shel mazik, and that's what Rabbi Akiva is saying. Rabbi Akiva is saying kal v'chomer lehektish. In that situation, hektish is actually going to collect from the idius, from the best karka of the mazik. And the Gemara continues, well, if that is the case, if so, Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. So now let's go back to the machlokas, Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Again, Rabbi Yishmael said, b'denizik shaiminon, and we explained Rabbi Akiva was talking about b'demazik shaiminon, but mimai devi'idis denizik v'ziborius demazik pligi. How do you know that they're arguing in a situation where the idius of the nizik, the idius of the person who was damaged, is equal to the ziborius of the mazik, and they're arguing? Rabbi Yishmael says you can just pay ziborius because that's equal to the idius of the nizik, but the nizik shaiminon. Rabbi Akiva says no. How do you know that's the machlokas Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva? Now that we brought in Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe, maybe that's the issue. Dilma dekuli alma b'denizik shaiminon. Maybe everybody agrees with what we said was Rabbi Yishmael's position, that you evaluate according to the property of the nizik. V'hacha beplug said Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe v'Rabbanan kamifligan. Maybe the machlokas between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva is exactly the machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe. Rabbi Akiva savar Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe. Maybe Rabbi Akiva is just saying, like Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe, that hektish has the upper hand when it comes to damages. But Rabbi Yishmael savar Rabbanan, and Rabbi Yishmael, he holds like the Rabbanan, hektish doesn't have the upper hand, and that is what they're arguing about. They're arguing about that issue of the kal v'chomer lehektish. The Gemara says that can't be, because if that was all they were arguing about, my lo bohakosiv, the language of Rabbi Akiva was the pasuk that you, Rabbi Yishmael, are quoting by regular situations of damage. That's not what the pasuk means. So clearly there's a machlokas by regular situations of damage. It's not only a machlokas by hektish. V'yod, and further, my kal v'chomer lehektish. Also, the language of Rabbi Akiva was kal v'chomer lehektish. It is certainly true by hektish. That language, as we'll see in Rashi in a moment, that language will not work if you're saying the machlokas is only by hektish. V'yod, and further, ha'amar Rav Ashi, that Rav Ashi said Tanya behedu. We have a brayso explicitly that explains it as we said it before. Meitav sadeo, meitav karma yishal, meitav sadeo shal nizik, umeitav karma shal nizik. Divrei Rabbi Yishmael. It's the same language as before. Again, Rabbi Yishmael says you follow according to the property of the nizik, the best of the nizik's property. Rabbi Akiva omer meitav sadeo shal mazik, umeitav karma shal mazik. Rabbi Akiva says it's the best of the field of the mazik and the best of the vineyard of the mazik, and there's no mention here of hektish, so clearly there is a machlokas between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva in regular situations of damage. And Rashi explains, Dilma dekuli alma b'denizik shaimin, and maybe everybody agrees you follow the property of the nizik when you're making the evaluation. V'lo mashalim le'mazik eli ziboris, and again in this situation, the mazik only has to pay the ziborius of his property, hoel v'huki idis de nizik, since it happens to be equal to the idis of the nizik, to the best of the nizik's property. Demod Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Yishmael. Maybe Rabbi Akiva admits to Rabbi Yishmael, Damar meitav sadeo shel nizik, that we follow the field, the best of the field of the nizik. V'idis to come Rabbi Akiva, and maybe when Rabbi Akiva was talking about idis de nizik kamar, he just meant the idis of the nizik. Maybe the machlokas is only by hektish. Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe v'Rabbanan pligi. It's the same machlokas. Rabbi Shimon ben Menashe and the Rabbanan. The Shamei Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Yishmael de lo ayri ela behediyot. The point would be as follows: Rabbi Akiva heard Rabbi Yishmael talking only by regular cases of damage. Aval benizke hektish pater le. He understood that to mean that by hektish totally pater. V'yasi Rabbi Akiva lefluge ele. Maybe that's what Rabbi Akiva is coming to argue about. And the Gemara then said that just doesn't work with the language of Rabbi Akiva. Imkain ma'lo bohakasiv. If so, what did Rabbi Akiva mean when he said the pasuk really means as follows? Demashma devikra gufe pligi. That sounds like they're arguing about the interpretation of that pasuk. Again, talking about regular damages. Delo bohakasiv lahachi. That's not what the pasuk means according to what you're saying. Rather, it means as follows: Alma behedyo nami pligi. You see that damages with regular people is also what they're arguing about. V'yod, and further, my kal v'chomer lehektish. You cannot explain the language of Rabbi Akiva of kal v'chomer lehektish if they're not arguing in terms of the regular case, meaning hoelu min ho'idius to ka'amar Rabbi Akiva anizakai. What it means is as follows: if what Rabbi Akiva was saying that idius really is evaluated by the nizik, ula akulayasa, that's actually a leniency. We're saying he doesn't have to pay the best of his property; he can just pay the best of the nizik's property. To yav le mazik miziborius, the mazik's allowed to give from the lower property. My kal v'chomer lehektish. So then it doesn't make sense to say a kal v'chomer if Rabbi Akiva is already also being lenient on the mazik just like Rabbi Yishmael. Kal v'chomer sounds like, for sure we're going to be strict, but you weren't strict in the first case. Grey use the havel, Rabbi Kiva Yova kocha the hekdesh ben izakin. Damar da'afilu have a mazik tam shakal hekdesh nezek shalom. On the contrary, Rabbi Kiva is saying by hekdesh that it goes further, that the mazik has to pay, even by a case of tam, he has to pay nezek shalom in the full. V'nafkale me reyeyu learns it out from reyeyu, so it wouldn't work. You can't say kal v'chomer lehekdesh if you're agreeing with Rabbi Yishmael that we're more lenient on the mazik in a regular case. What does it mean kal v'chomer lehekdesh that we're more strict? That wouldn't work. V'yod, and further, finally, Tanya behedya. There's a brisa that says explicitly to min ha'idis to come Rabbi Kiva amazikoi, that when Rabbi Kiva says from idis, it's going on the mazik's idis. That's explicit again in this brisa that we bring. Rabbi Kiva omer meitav sadeo shel mazik or meitav karmo shel mazik. So you can't say he agrees with Rabbi Yishmael on that point. And again, as we mentioned, this brisa as well that Rav Ashi brings has nothing. There's no mention of a machlokus in terms of kal v'chomer lehekdesh. It's a straight, clear machlokus in terms of how you evaluate whether you say it's the sada of the nizik or the sada of the mazik that we are evaluating. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. Rami le Abaye l'Rava. Abaye has the following contradiction for Rava. Ksiv meitav sadeu meitav karmo yishalim. It says in the pasuk that in cases of damages he has to pay the best of his field and the best of his vineyard. Meitav in midi achrina lo. It sounds like he has to pay the best of his field, and there's no other options in terms of what you pay when you do damage. V'atanya, but the problem is, it says in the pasuk also yoshiv. It says in the pasuk yoshiv. The pasuk is saying kesef yoshiv le'ba'olav. You have to pay money. L'rabos shave kesef, and that means to say it's not just money. That means to say even something that's worth money. It could be other movable objects that you can sell for money. V'afilu subin, even bran, it would be fine to pay bran. So you have a contradiction. On the one hand, it's saying meitav, you have to pay from the very best. And on the other hand, it says even subin, even bran, which certainly is not the very best. Rashi says yoshiv, kesef yoshiv leba'olav. Again, that's the pasuk. To have a lemichtav bal habor yishalim kesef leba'olav. It could have just said the bal habor pays kesef. Yoshiv the kasav rachmana lamali. Why does it say the pasuk of yoshiv? Why does it say the word yoshiv? Hoel uchvar ksiv yishalim l'rabos kol hashavos. Again, it already says yishalim, so it's saying l'rabos kol hashavos. We're including all kinds of returnings, all kinds of payments. You can even pay from the worst, according to this. You can even pay from bran. And so the Gemara says, lo kash, it's not difficult. Kan midaito, kan bal karchu. It depends if he's paying willingly, or it depends if he's being forced to pay. Rashi explains midaito, imishalim le mazik nitzko midaito. It means as follows. If the mazik pays the damage willingly, he doesn't make the guy take him to Bezdin, scream to Bezdin about this, shakel subin. So then, if he's paying willingly, he can even pay in bran. He could take bran. But if the mazik does not, he's not willing to pay the person who got damaged for the damage, unless he gets taken to court. The hainu bal karcho, that's considered against his will. So then in that situation, he only pays kesef. That's what it means that you're going to pay from the meitav, so to speak. That's what it means that you're going to pay from the best. And we will note over here that the Mesoras Hashah says some have the girsa not of Eino Meshalim Ela Kesef, that when it's Bal Karchu he pays Kesef, but they have the girsa of Eino Meshalim Ela Meitav. You're only going to pay from the best, again, because the original question was, in one pasuk it seems to say you pay from the best, in the other it doesn't seem to say that. And again, the answer to the contradiction is Kan Midaito, Kan Bal Karchu. And the Gemara continues, Amar Ula Brei de Ravi Loi. Ula, the son of Ravi Loi, says, Dekonami, I'll bring you a proof to this as well. Dechsiv Yeshalim, because it says in the pasuk Yeshalim Bal Karchu. It says Meitav Sadehu, Meitav Karmu Yeshalim. That sounds like we're talking about Bal Karchu. Rashi says, Dekonami Degami Meitav Ksiv Yeshalim. Again, by the Meitav, it says the word Yeshalim. Demashma Yeshalim Bal Karchu. That is mashma, implies that he's paying against his will, and therefore that is a proof to this answer that again, Meitav Karmu, Meitav Sadehu Yeshalim is talking about against his will, and Yoshev L'Rabos Shavakesef, that's talking about when he pays willingly. But the Gemara continues, Amar Le Abaya. Abaya said back to Ula, Miksiv Yeshulam. Does it say the word Yeshulam? Yeshulam would sound like it's against his will. Yeshalim Ksiv, it's written Yeshalim. Midaito Mashma, on the contrary, that sounds like he's paying willingly. As Rashi says, Yeshulam Mashmal Yedei Acherim. The word Yeshulam would sound like others are making him pay. The Bezin Yordan Lenechas of the Mazik. Bezin is descending to the property of the Mazik to get the payment. Aval Yeshalim Mashman Ami Midaito, but Yeshalim can also imply that he's doing it willingly, and therefore Abaya does not accept this answer. Elo Amar Abaya, rather Abaya says Kidamar, The answer follows what the master said. The master over here is a reference to Rabbah. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa. Rashi says, we don't find an answer to these psukim, only like the master said, it's the same answer that Rabbah gave. Rabbah was the Rebbe of Abai, is called the master. The same answer that Rabbah gave to this Brisa that we're about to quote is the answer to this question. The Tanya, as we learned in a Brisa, let's say he has houses and he has fields and he has vineyards, ve'eno motzi lemochran, and he's not able to sell them. So the halach is machilan oso meiser ani. So he's allowed to receive meiser ani ad mechza, until half of the value of the property that he has. Rashi explains, the case over here is when you add up all of the person's property, so it's worth 200 zuz. And the rule is, the Mishnah Meseches Peah says, that if somebody has a value, a net worth of 200 zuz, he's not allowed to take the general gifts, so to speak, that are given to the poor, which are leket, shicha, peya, ma'israni. He's not allowed to take that if he has this net worth of 200 zuz. The lavanihu, because he's not considered an ani, v'nimtza goes alaniyim, and it comes out, if he takes, he's stealing from other poor people. Hayulo masayim zuz chaser dinar. Now let's say he has just a little bit less. He's a little short, 1 dinar short of 200 zuz. V'nasnu lo shava elef zuz bevas achas, and then they give him something that's worth 1,000 zuz in one shot as part of his meiser ani. Harei now he is allowed to take that because he's getting it. It's being given to him as one gift, as one matana. He didn't have a worth of 200 zuz, therefore he's allowed to. Now this guy, he has houses and fields and vineyards, they are worth 200 zuz. So technically, he's not entitled to meiser ani. But however, he's not able to sell them. So right now, he just has no food because he can't find anyone who'll buy. So the halacha is machilan oso meiser ani ad mechza. So we give him meiser ani until halfway. Shavim meya zuz, meaning a value of 100 zuz. The karka osav yimchor b'meya zuz, and then he'll sell the karka that he'll sell for 100 zuz. The tfei mipalga lo zayli lo, because it's not going to go less. It's not going to be worth less than 50% of what it's really worth. He'll certainly be able to sell it for half of its worth. So he takes meiser ani up to 100 zuz, up to half, and then he'll sell his property at half. Says that will bring him to 200 zuz. And so that's the meaning of the Bryce over here, that again, Eino Motza L'Mochon, he can't sell these houses and fields and vineyards. Machilan oso ma'israni ad mech. So we give him ma'israni halfway, we give him until 100 zuz. V'have bo mar. And so Rabbah, the master, asked the following question. Hey Chidami, what exactly is the case over here? Let's say everybody's land has went down. We're in a situation where the value of all property has went down. His went down just like everyone else. So afilu tuvanami lisvile, then he should be able to be given even more than that. He should be considered a legitimate ani, because really everyone's property went down. His property is not actually worth 200 zuz. Dehazol dekuli almanami, because everybody's property went down. So Ella, rather, what are you going to say? De'oker arata dekuli alma. Everybody else's property actually went up. V'didei, but his property, I did the ayil v'nafik, since he is trying to go out, find buyers. Everybody knows he's desperate. V'nafik azuzi, he's going out to get money. So zolare, so therefore his land actually became worth less. And Rashi explains again, afilu tuvanami lisvule, he should get even more if you have such a situation where everybody's property went down. Shari achshav ein shave masayim zuz, because right now it's not worth 200 zuz. Utanan hayu lo masayim zuz chaser dinar. And again, like we said, the Mishnah says if he had a little bit less than 200 zuz, afilu nosnu lo shave elef zuz b'vas achas, even if they gave him something worth 1,000 zuz in one shot, he's allowed to take it. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Zayin Amid Beis.